Victoria Pelletier is the Vice President of IBM's North American Talent and Transformation Practice. She's a senior executive with over 2 decades of progressive experience in strategy, operations, growth initiatives, and business and talent development. She's a visionary leader with a passion for innovation, creativity, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. In fact, Victoria has won both the 2020 Mentor of the Year Award from the Women in Communications and Technology and the 2019 HSBC Diversity and Inclusion Innovation Award. Victoria serves as a board member for several organizations. She's a regular contributor to Forbes and a member of the Forbes Human Resources Council. She's an in-demand public speaker and appears regularly on national radio and television. As an inspiring professional with impeccable credentials, Victoria is a trusted voice among peers and emerging executives. Thank you for being here today, Victoria.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start off by asking you if you can share with us the overview of your journey to leadership.
It started very early, quite frankly, from becoming the assistant manager in the shoe store I worked at when I was 14 to, and much more so of the professional services world today, becoming an executive as the COO and general manager for a large BPO organization at just age 24, a few months after I'd given birth to my first child. And ever since, my career has been focused on business to business consulting services with technology enablement.
My next question to you is, what cause or causes do you use your voice or actions for?
Many. I'm going to say, I think if you were to talk to my team, I use the phrase pretty liberally that I am radically candid. So the fact is, I use my voice quite openly for challenging the status quo around culture, around leadership. You talked about in my intro, diversity and inclusion. Those are things I've been incredibly passionate about for most of my career, having been the youngest executive at the table, the only woman at the table, quite frankly, for significant majority of my career. And we still have great strides today. So I use my voice for those things. I'm now actually very fortunate that the work that I do at IBM is supporting our external clients with everything related to workforce, culture, the services of supporting their employees. So I've now actually had the opportunity to marry together my passion and purpose with what I do for a day job.
A next question, who are some of your greatest role models or mentors and why?
You know, the thing that's actually really sad when I've reflected on this over the years, and I get asked the question a lot, is it's actually flipped on its head for me, in that I actually haven't had a significant number of mentors throughout the years, but rather individuals I've observed whom I've determined I'm going to be nothing like. I've been very focused on being the type of leader that I want to work for. So instead, it's been a lot about looking at others and how they choose to lead, whether it's been people I've worked for in the past or, quite frankly, just others out in the community. They have taught me much more than any single individual mentor.
So what would be your advice for women who are building their careers?
A number of things. So the most important of which is to, speak your own voice. Be really comfortable in, asking for what you deserve. And I say that because I think that, many times we're afraid of fear, of rejection, of being told no. And therefore we sit and wait for someone to help manage our career, to pull us along. But the reality is we need to be absolutely in control of our own destinies. I have this social media hashtag I sign off most posts with, no excuses. That connects deeply into the sort of adjacent to that, this one that you don't ask, you don't get. So that is being really mindful of setting your goals and objectives, quite honestly, as far and wide as you want them to go. Don't let anyone define those for you. and speaking loudly along the way, whether it's about a stretch role that you're looking for, whether it's about the compensation you want for the skills and experience you have and the potential that you bring to that organization.
Just a side question for that. How about if you do ask for what you want, but the person on the other end who's in a position to give it to you decides not to, or doesn't align with how you're thinking?
I think you need to continue to have conversations, not only with that individual. I think there's an opportunity to reflect on why they said no or weren't supportive. So is there something you need to do differently in articulating, again, values, experience that you bring, research around what's happening in the market, right? They might not be aware of it. So that's number one. Two is a network that you build that's outside of your individual manager. Really, a lot of other people within organizations that have influence. And it isn't always just that direct line manager, right? So understand who they are, build your brand, not only for being known for how well you deliver, but all of the other things that encompass that, the type of individual you are, the values and integrity that you bring, and so essentially craft what do you want to be known for beyond just being a great, individual contributor or leader.
What is your greatest accomplishment in your career trajectory?
I had set a goal for myself that I wanted to become CEO before I turned 40, which I did accomplish. Although conversely, I actually also had a goal of making the top 40 under 40, which they stopped for a couple of years before I turned 40. And
no!
I know, and then restarted it. I was in my 40s, so I didn't achieve that one. Although that's really just, that's just recognition. So for me, it was achieving. I really wanted to. I love big, hairy, meaty challenges, and leading an organization fully gave me that opportunity. So that was a really big moment for me.
Last question. What do you think is the most significant barrier to female leadership?
Ourselves. And by that, going back to the earlier question over what do we need to do for advancement, owning your career and the voice that you have in bringing to it. So I think we hold ourselves back on a multitude of fronts, going back to this fear of rejection. So it's proven, there's data that shows that women typically don't apply for new roles unless they meet 9 or 10 out of the 10 criteria that's listed for the role. Men at only 6 or 7, right? So we don't need to strive for perfection, right? Or learn to build a bridge between the experience that you have that does align with that criteria. So that's one, is around that, again, fear, rejection of asking and going for what we want, number one. Number two is there's this other notion I talk around boundaries. So one is the limiting version in which you let other people define for you how far you're going to go. But related to that is not controlling and defining the things that you will do. I have this saying that, where there's conviction, there's capacity. And then as women, for those who choose to become mothers, when they take that on, there's guilt on the home front and, feeling like there has to be a trade-off from a career perspective with family life. And I don't believe there does, right? It doesn't mean that there isn't compromise and balance. And, I believe there's an ocean, you can have it all, but not necessarily all at the same time. And so we need to get comfortable with setting the boundaries for ourselves. I'd love to say, don't feel guilty. The reality is we feel it, but certainly don't let others make you feel guilty. I personally, at one point in my career, spent 220 days on the road one year, and my youngest, she was only 2 or 3 years old at the time. So I missed some things, but I also tried to, make the moments when I was home really count. And so I think it's all of those factors that hold many women back. And we're seeing it more so now, the impact of the pandemic, greater impact on women, quite frankly, than it's having on our male counterparts.
Thank you for that, Victoria. I think one thing to note is the more we talk about these barriers and we bring them to light, the less hold they have on ourselves and our colleagues out there. I'd like to thank you again for your time and participating in our speaker series. So thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. Glad to be here.